Oh my God, I'm a mess. I'm a mess. Welcome in. It's the Sarah Fraser Show podcast. Of course, it is Monday, so that means that we always recap a new Sister Wives episode when the season is airing and when there is a new episode, which there was last night, season 19, episode 23. We knew it was going to be extremely emotional. And it was. Oh my God. The stars will fall from the sky was the title of last night's episode. And really almost all, except for the first 12 minutes of the episode, were dedicated to the passing of Garrison Brown. Oh my God, I'm a mess. I will get control of myself, but I thought last night's episode was so good. They handled it really, really well, I thought, but I'm so curious to hear what you have to say. Obviously, the internet today is flooded with comments, with fans, with reactions to that episode. I probably found out maybe 4 months ago, that we would in fact be getting a Garrison Brown tribute episode. It's unclear if we are getting a second one, if episode 24 will deal more with it. I'm believing it is going to, because we know when we left last night's episode that, and I actually just, this like tore me up, but Kody Brown sitting at his fire pit in the back, which I'm going to refrain from saying anything negative in this podcast because it was so emotional. I can't ever imagine what that family has gone through, what they're still going through. To put it out there publicly on TV is helping a lot of people, but I'm sure for them is also reliving one of the worst, if not the worst, day of their lives. So that scene, the last few minutes of last night's episode with Kody and Robin sitting at that fire pit and him just saying that, oh my God, okay. I'm like the worst at death. I don't even have to know you if you tell me someone in your family has died. I don't even need to know a lick about them. They might have been the worst human being. I will be a ball of tears. But when he just said that he wanted to take Garrison home, and bury him in Wyoming, hello, I could not stop crying, could not stop. So I would imagine we're going to see more of that over the next couple of episodes as we head to the one-on-one. But let's talk about this episode from the beginning. Obviously, much hyped. Like I said, we knew a couple of months ago we were going to get this. It's been a little over a year since Garrison passed. If you're just discovering my podcast or maybe tuning into Sister Wives for the first time because this episode was much talked about today on the internet. Garrison was the son of Janelle, and Kody still is, passed away March 5th, 2024, and passed away by suicide. Oh my God. I am like literally, okay, I'm actually snotting out. This is so what? This doesn't even look good. Oh my God. Don't tune into the YouTube. Oh, okay. Get control of yourself, girl. You got to get through a show and tell people what they need to know here. So the son of Janelle and Kody. And wow. Okay. Last night. So we opened last night. We kind of did this. I guess, I don't know. Does anybody have thoughts on this? Why it was there? We sort of have the first 12 minutes of last night's episode being about Christine and David and them settling into marriage, being together a little over a year. And really living together as husband and wife, really for the two of them for the first time in years and years. We know that David's wife had passed away over a decade ago. I mean, this has to be so triggering for David. David's first wife passed away by suicide. They have, I think, something like 7 children together, 6 or 7 kids. It might be more. And she passed away by suicide. Some of David Woolley's kids are on social media, specifically his daughter. She does a lot on TikTok. I'll get her TikTok name for you guys, but I enjoy following her videos, and she does a lot about talking about losing a parent to suicide. So I'm sure this was like incredibly triggering for David. Fascinating last night, David did not do a confessional. David probably had only met Garrison a couple of times since he and Christine in last night's episode had only been together a little over a year, right? But that was fascinating to me that we even started out with them, that we didn't just kind of go into that day, but we kind of start out on a happy, lighter note. It's sort of the same old last night with this episode with Christine and David. They're crazy about each other. And I don't think that this is setting the scene. Hopefully, their scene last night wasn't setting the scene for any problems in their relationship. I think it was more that they're realizing they fell in love, they got married within 6 months, and now like married life is really setting in for them. And Christine is realizing, and I thought this was handled well last night, and nothing was negative at all, meaning like none of the women's confessionals. Christine is realizing that with Kody, she had a lot more freedom in the sense of Kody really didn't care about her like parenting decisions. She essentially lived alone in most of her homes, except for when the show all started, and parented the way she wanted, made a lot of decisions the way she wanted. And David, in a good way, wants to be involved in every aspect of their life. So it's kind of this negotiation or maybe like checking in with somebody. And really the whole premise of this first 10 minutes is David Woolley jumps over a fence that Christine does not want him to jump over. It's in their backyard. They lose a frisbee on the other side. At first, Isabel's going to jump over the fence and get the frisbee because they're sort of having this spontaneous cookout night. McKelty's there, Tony's there, Isabel's there, Peyton's there, some of the kids, McKelty's kids. So it kind of is David and Christine finding themselves in their relationship, right? I'm still trying to figure out why we juxtaposed that first 10 minutes with the Garrison stuff, but maybe this episode is to be looked at as less of like a complete episode takeover and tribute and more of just the continuation of Sister Wives and this show that we have now seen for 19 seasons. Maybe that is as simple as it is, right? But I did think that was just an interesting choice. May not have been anything, like I said, except for just, hey, this is what was happening in their normal lives around the time when Garrison passed. Like, this is what we were focusing on. And we go from David and Christine's over to Meri's. And Meri and Jen are sitting there and celebrating that they have their last B&B bed and breakfast guest at Meri's mom's bed and breakfast, which she bought Lizzie's Heritage Inn. Honey, you ain't ever seen, the only light moment of last night was those two women. You ain't ever seen somebody so happy to pass out one last fried egg than those two. Okay, they are like, is everybody gone? Are we never going to have to change a bed sheet again, bitch? They could not have been more thrilled to see some bed and breakfast folks leave than that. Okay. That moment I had to laugh. They're going to get an old family heirloom tablecloth they've taken out of the closet that they're going to put out again so they don't have to worry about guests staining all over that crap. They're celebrating, okay? If those two were drinkers, they would have been toasting. They were so happy. And Meri tells us what we pretty much already knew, and she's said this on TikTok Lives, but Lizzie's Heritage Inn is going to become more of a small venue situation. And what that means is bridal shower parties, small weddings. Meri says they've had a small wedding there before. It was absolutely beautiful. She wants that kind of thing. Small events. I'm telling you right now, we're doing a live podcast there. I want to do a live podcast at Lizzie's Heritage. And we'll just bring I don't even know how many people can fit. 50. Well, I think there's probably only room for 12 at the inn. But maybe we'll just do a live podcast and everybody can come. Anyhow, so they're remodeling it. Everybody's gone. You've never seen two people so thrilled to never change some bed and breakfast sheets ever again. And we talk about Meri's dating life. So again, I think the first 12, 13 minutes of the show was to really set up hey, everybody's living their normal lives when this was happening to Garrison, right? So Meri talks about dating again. Now, we've heard Meri 2 seasons now, wants to be dating, has dated. She's obviously gone viral and in the press for some of one man she was dating it was cute. But Lord, did people come out of the woodwork finding out background about him? Whew. So that did not last long. But she wants to date. She wants to find that person. She wants to find real love. And she confesses that she's going to need to trust them. She's going to need to trust a man. And that's going to be difficult because for 20-something years, Kody Brown told her, I am even more than that, 30. I believe. They were married. Let's see how long. Hold on. Drives me nuts when I don't memorize these facts, but how long were Kody and Meri married? Oh, 32 years. Okay, sis, 1990 to 2022. Whew. So she confesses that she's going to need to trust a man because for 30 years she was with one who said, I love you, I love you. And now, since 2022, has done nothing but backtrack. Right around the 12-minute mark in. And I thought this was a good way to get into it. It was real. It was real. And it let you know where everybody was, or at least kind of setting the scene of where Sister Wives was when Garrison passed away. So at the 12-minute mark, Meri is doing her one-on-one confessionals, which we see these women do and men every week, and Kody starts blowing up her phone. At first, when she sees his phone call, she ignores it. She's not interested in talking to Kody, but he calls again. She's texting him. The producers are kind of setting the scene, like, talk more about the carriage house, talk about this. And she's like, wait a sec. Okay, Kody says this is an emergency. And so picks up the phone. And then we go into on March 5th, 2024, Garrison took his own life. And we begin to see the family's reactions. And then we see Janelle. And Janelle tells us that Gabriel found him. A lot of us knew this anyway, that have followed this show, followed that breaking news that happened in 2024. And he calls Janelle and he tells her what had happened. Then we go to Hunter calling Christine. And Christine picks up the phone and she, had this instinct something was off because she and Hunter didn't speak that much on the phone. She says that she fell to the floor in her office and just immediately started sobbing. And she, I think, is the first one to say on camera that they knew something was wrong with Garrison and had been wrong with his mental health, but they were hoping for a different outcome. And throughout last night's episode, we do hear, which I think this was brave of them, fascinating to say. They basically said they knew Garrison was in trouble, that throughout COVID, he really picked up drinking. He was never a drinker. It wasn't something that he did until COVID, and it was like a switch went off, which I think a lot of people listening to this, if you have alcoholism in your family, if you have mental health issues in your family, lots of times it's that one trigger for that person and they become a completely different person. Can happen within weeks, within days, an event happening, substance happening, something that triggers them. And the family really last night talks about throughout the episode. They knew something was wrong. They were checking on him constantly. They were offering him help. They were trying to do something and intervening. And they don't come out and say, well, I mean, they do. I think at times Janelle, when she's talking to her sister later on in scenes, does say that, he didn't seem to want it, right? He knew he had the resources. They had the resources. Everybody had offered, but he just didn't want to take it, right? And the hardest part, I think, in life, this is going to make me emotional, but I think the hardest part in life is, you can want it for somebody else, no matter what, like positive or negative, whether it's addiction, mental health, changing their lives, getting out of a horrible marriage, whatever it is, you can want it for somebody else, but they're the ones that have to do it. And until they're ready, there's nothing really you can do except for just like what they were doing with Garrison, calling, showing up. Oh my God, emotional wreck again. I don't even have any tissues. I'm actually using toilet paper. It's not like I wanted to get my raw reactions immediately after watching it for you all. So we then go to Kody. Now, I have to say, at first with last night's episode, for a while, I thought they were going to limit how much they showed of Kody. And then I thought it was beautiful at the end and full circle. And again, maybe a big changing moment for this family. Although, we know today, at least Meri doesn't have a relationship with Kody and Robin, and Maddie and Caleb have made it clear that they don't speak to Kody, right? So how much his relationship changed with his children after losing Garrison, I don't know. But we're probably going to find out more. And he certainly in last night's episode is very forthcoming with all the regrets that he has. So Kody is speechless. Last night, it was beautiful and heartbreaking and I think sincere, but they kept the cameras rolling when all of these family members were trying to find the words to say because they never believed this could happen to their family. They never believed that one of the kids would ever take their own lives. So Cody's speechless. He's shaking his head, and Gwen called him. Gwendolyn called. She just said, I want to come over and see you. This is right after hearing that Garrison had passed. And then he makes this kind of metaphor, but I know what he's saying, that he's like looking down into his esophagus and the grief is so overwhelming and just coming up and coming out. And that's when he just starts sobbing and wailing. Now, this is, of course, in the confessional. The cameras were not rolling at the time. And, he's overwhelmed by the loss. Robin talked. She was in her room working. Kody came in, told her. She just said that, at first it didn't register. It was shocking. I have to say, I've experienced 2 family losses and a miscarriage in 2025 over the past January, February, March. And it is numbing. It is numbing when you hear these things. It's at first, it takes a while sometimes for the grief to kick in. And that's what Robin had experienced. I think last night's episode showed you how each of them grieved differently, continue to grieve differently, and how it's hit them. Meri last night in this episode was overwhelmed. I mean, the tears from Meri, the heartbreak, it was hard to watch. Meri heard what happened. She immediately went over to Kody and Robin's house. She and Gwen just embraced and cried. And then we go to Madison. Last night, some of the kids, I don't know if they chose to speak, wanted to speak, if production asked certain people, but we had Caleb and Madison speak last night. We had Gabe. I mean, this has to be so overwhelming for Gabe. And I know Janelle talks about being so worried about him because Gabe is the one that found his brother. McKelty speaks, Tony speaks. Very, very difficult. So Madison and Caleb sit on a couch when cameras come up and we ask them. And Madison says that day she and her mom had been talking a lot. And she says that, when she got the phone call already, she and her mother had been calling back and forth, had been texting. I'm not sure in that scene if she's alluding to the fact that they were calling and texting already about Garrison. I do think, Janelle makes it very clear the day he took his life, he was extremely emotional. He'd been drinking. She was worried about him, but he'd sort of done this pattern before where he would drink, pass out. They wouldn't hear from him until the next day. That's the hard and tricky part about suicide, right? It's very hard to know, some people are very obvious about it. Other people are more quiet about it. It's such a difficult one and you never know. And Maddie talks about how brain chemistry, how it changes throughout your life with certain moments that happen. Again, this was like so emotional. I thought that, because I'm sure you guys do listening, right? We all can recount if you ever get that unexpected phone call, an aunt passed away, a sister, a sibling, your own child, God forbid, you know exactly where you were when you got that phone call. And Madison says her brain chemistry changed that day, calling her siblings and telling her siblings that their brother had passed away. We go back to Janelle. And really last night's episode was going between these confessionals and some scenes at Kody and Robin's house and at Caleb and Madison's. Janelle says that he had been drinking in Flagstaff that day and she knew that he was struggling. And she laid down to go to bed around 8:30 and she reached out to Gabe Hunter and just said, look, he's been drinking, can you check on him? They were like, no problem, Mom. We got you, go to bed. And she confesses, like we talked about earlier in this episode, that this was sort of his pattern. He drank, would be sober, then he would binge. So they knew that had been going on now for a couple of years. But again, he come out of it. They were talking to him. They were hoping for a different outcome. And just Gabe called her and said he was gone. And then they interviewed Gabe. Oh my God. Get your tissues ready. Gabe did a great job last night. How he kept it together, I don't know. Break your heart. I truly hope, again, a lot of the kids are off camera. They don't want to be on the show anymore. Leon, we know. Gwen doesn't want to be on. And I think it's partly because they're not paid. So I agree with them. They're adults now. Why would you? Like, I wouldn't be on TV unless someone paid me either. So I hope Gabe is doing okay today in real time. But he talks about his brother, and it was so heartfelt that Garrison was such a genuine person and felt things on a much deeper level, he says, than most human beings. And Meri talks us through that a few days after Garrison's passing, there was a viewing, and that was the last time that everyone saw his body because he was cremated. Kody says that the strongest memories he has of those 3 days after Garrison's suicide was being with Janelle. And he just apologized at the funeral home, at the viewing, to everybody, just over and over. And we find out how much Garrison we knew loved the stars and fires. And Christine gives a speech, we find out, at the wake. And she talks about his favorite movie. And at the end of the favorite movie, the dragon dies and turns into Draco. And when people ask, where to look for Draco in the movie, they say, look to the stars. So let's find out. Dragon dies and turns into Draco. Let's find out. Oh, Dragonheart. Okay. Dragonheart, 1996. From that movie. For some reason, I didn't catch it when she said it last night, but from the Dragonheart film. And so, again, production stays with Christine for a very long time. This scene is very sad. Takes her several moments to kind of gather her thoughts and get through this. And just how heartbroken. I mean, all these women, they raise those kids, whatever we think, and, them putting themselves on TV for 19 seasons. But they started out with the intentions of a polygamy family that the kids have multiple mothers. That's the premise. So Meri, we'll go back. Christine speaks. McKelty and Tony then speak on camera. They talk about his personality too. He was a jokester. He had a ton of friends. He was cool. He was the nicest guy. And Maddie and Caleb say, look, we were trying so hard. We were so close. We had him so close to moving to North Carolina, and it just, wasn't meant to be. Which again, how many of us have had dear friends we went to high school with, tragically children, tragically spouses, tragically siblings, where you sit there and you're like, what if it had been different, but it wasn't meant to be. They all talk about his struggle with alcohol. They make that a point. I think, again, I appreciate. I think this family. Let me get more toilet paper. Oh my god. Is anyone else? This episode? I'm trying to think of an episode that has been as sad as this one on TV recently. I don't know. You know what one really got me? Was Real Housewives of Beverly Hills when Kyle's dear friend Lorene, who also took her life, when Lorene died. That was brutal. I thought the way that they honored how Lorene died. It was so sad. So aside from that episode on RHOBH, this one was one of the saddest ones that I've watched in recent memory. They almost got him. Caleb and Maddie confessed to move to North Carolina, but it wasn't meant to be. Everyone tried to help him. They really talked about that. I thought last night they did a good job of, because when anyone passes from cancer, from suicide, there's always so many questions. What ifs? Signs. I think it's human nature to ask questions because you're always, to some extent, especially if you've lost somebody suddenly, always on guard. How can I prevent this from happening again? What can I do? What can I say? So they talk about how everyone tried to help him. Janelle says he had the resources. He had other nights like what he had experienced the night he took his life. And then Kody and Robin talk about burying him. And they decided they were going to cremate him, take him to Wyoming, which is one of his favorite places, and where Grandma Cheryl is buried. That's where Kody wants him to be, and so does Janelle. And Janelle, then we kind of fast forward to some degree. We know that Janelle had already moved to North Carolina when Garrison took his life. And we see her in the kitchen with her sister. Oh my God, break your heart, so emotional. And she really moved before he passed. And she says that she really just tries to stay busy. If she stays busy, that she can get through it, and sometimes it's minute by minute, it's hour by hour. Oh my God. And then this line broke my heart. And Janelle says, I know, she says to the cameras, the hardest part, some of the times the hardest part is, I know that he's dead, but I forget that he's dead. And, I have to be reminded. And so it's like, oh my God. So then we head back, this is kind of the 34-minute mark. This is towards the end of last night's episode. We head back to Kody in Flagstaff, where he's in the garage. He's got a big picture of Garrison in his garage in that military picture, which a lot of people have seen online. And he's out sitting on his patio in the back, having a fire, and clearly has been so crying. Kody's face is puffy. He's got glasses on, holding back his hair. And Kody tells the camera, he tells all of us that he regrets not doing more. And he regrets not making it right before Garrison passed. And what if he had called Garrison that week, that day? He never got to say goodbye. And I think a lot of people, again, we can all have a lot of judgments about last night. We can have a lot of judgments fast forward. Now it's been over a year since Garrison passed away. Whether Kody has stuck with what he said last night or not, I don't know. But last night in the moment, it was, I think it was heartbreaking. I think anybody in that position, you always ask yourself, and same thing, I think of it in a car crash, suicide. I mean, is there something more I could have done? Overdose, could I have done more? You play the what if game. And Kody says that playing the what if game is what he needs to do to get through. It's what he needs to do. We pop back to North Carolina. Janelle is still hanging with her sister, and she says that Gabe, of course, took it extremely hard. Gabriel found his brother, and she's been really worried about him too. He's getting better. Hopefully he's doing great today. And Janelle says being in North Carolina, it's just been a saving grace for her. She's around her grandkids. They obviously have launching Tada Farms. A lot of things have moved forward, right, since Garrison's passing, as I'm sure he would want for them. And Kody just talks about at the fire, Robin comes out. She's encouraging him to let it out, that it's healthy. I will say, Robin, sounds like you've done some therapy, girl. It's what the therapists say. What you resist persists. So let it out. Let out the grief. Let out the sadness. Let out the what if for a while. If that's what helps, play it all out. And Kody, I think, says what a lot of parents and me, I never be in this position, but I know, unfortunately, people listening to this podcast and many people that have gone through it, but losing a child is probably just the worst thing that could possibly happen to any parent. Far and away, I think everyone would admit that. And so Kody asked a question that I think a lot of parents who have lost a child would ask, and that's, how do I do this for the rest of my life? How do I do this for the rest of my life? I thought he did I thought for a guy who we have seen episode after episode in recent seasons, a lot of people have given him a difficult time for not taking responsibility. I thought he took a lot of responsibility. And, he talks about all the COVID stuff, how foolish it was. And in hindsight, it meant nothing. And it made no sense. And, he basically talks about where does he go from here with his kids? This is a person really reflecting on the regrets that he has. Robin is listening. She's like, do you want me to be here? Do you want to be alone? I mean, I think we have to give these guys a ton of credit, because to do that on camera after losing such a monumental loss, I think is so big. And, then again, like, they closed last night's scene, kind of how we started this, but when he said like he wanted to carry his son home and bury him, I'm like, oh my God, I can't take it. It's just so sad. I'm like a mess. Oh, wow. What a tribute. I think they did such an excellent job. What a tearjerker for those of us who have been following this family, who have gotten into it. On my show every week, I say all the time, I try to cover pop culture in a fun way, in an escapism way for you all. I like everybody on TV. There are really very few people I dislike. Do I dislike scenes and things they say? Sure. But I think we're 20 years into the reality TV game. Everybody knows a lot of things are edited, coerced, and that's the price you pay for doing a reality show. You give away your editorial freedom, except if you're the Kardashians. Okay. Chris is editing that show, but minus that, most people are giving it up. So we try to have fun every week. Last night, I think they deserve a ton of credit because it was so real. I think it was so real. I think it was genuine. Whatever people said last night, whether they stick with it years later, I have no idea. But I thought as far as last night went, it was exceptional. And I do know TLC, I work closely with TLC. I enjoy my relationship with them. In this episode, they were encouraging everyone who was sharing it. And of course, you saw it too on the show last night. But I want to repeat it here. Suicide it's so awful. It's touched my family. It's heartbreaking beyond belief. Sometimes there are signs, sometimes there isn't. But if you have those feelings, I certainly know people who have had that feeling and they've gotten help. Please be that person. Call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline or chat at 988lifeline.org. Okay, so it was up last night on the show, and then TLC was encouraging all of us who talk about it to also put it out there. But if you or someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts, severe depression, if you're just feeling like, does anybody want me here on this earth? Sometimes it just starts that way. Or sometimes it feels like the only way out is if I'm not here, that my friends and family will be better off without me. If you or someone you know is having that thought, what does it hurt to just talk to somebody and talk through it? Call or text 988. That's the Suicide Crisis Lifeline, or chat at 988lifeline.org. Okay. Oh my God. Emotional. I'm a mess. I'm a mess. Oh my God. So tough. So tough. So let us know how you feel. I'll have a lot of sister wives. We'll get back to kind of our sister wives tea and scoop this week. Aspen is pregnant. She and Mitch with their first baby. And the way that she announced it was really cute on television, like on a local TV news channel. And then it went viral everywhere. So we will talk about that. A lot of people's reactions. A lot of people, I'll talk about this tomorrow on the podcast, but a lot of people having mixed feelings about last night's episode, and also feeling a little bit of guilt of being intrigued about following it. And, to that I say, again, we'll talk more about it tomorrow, but I think anytime people share a mental health situation that's going on, anything, a cancer situation, whatever it is, Tony Mellencamp, I mean, how amazing she is. You are helping somebody else. You never know who is listening, who is watching. I know the power of this medium, of talk, of television. You never know who's watching that. Just that story that you tell about your life, how that might encourage someone to get help, move on, move forward, recognize that someone in their life is going through it and needs help too. So, what a doozy. Love you guys. Well, more on the Sarah Fraser Show this week. Bye, everybody.